Hey everybody, it's Micah with Membarium, and today we get the pleasure of talking with Brett Gilliland from Elite Entrepreneurs. And Brett's agreed to give us a peek behind the scenes of his membership site and share some insights and things he's learned along the way. So Brett, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Micah, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share some things.
Yeah, of course. And I appreciate the opportunity to pick your brain because I did not realize this, even though I've seen you around Infusionsoft for, man, forever, it seems like. I didn't realize kind of what your role was. And it's so cool now that you're doing this with Elite Entrepreneurs. So can you tell me a little bit about your business, how you got started somewhat, and then what you did with Infusion and what you're doing today just to get started, and then we'll dive into the membership site.
Yeah, okay, great. I'll actually probably take those in reverse since you alluded to seeing me around forever, and that's true. I was around for quite a while. I spent about 10 years at Infusionsoft. And during that time, I heard a guy named Clayton Mask speak at an event. I live in the Phoenix area. I was out consulting small businesses, helping them grow. And I heard a guy named Clayton Mask speak at an event where he was sharing how Infusionsoft had just raised venture capital money from Silicon Valley. And it was like this really cool thing around town with all the entrepreneurs. Like, how did you do that? How did you get Silicon Valley money here? And so this was back in 2007. And he was passionate. He had a clear vision. I thought I can help him. He'd just gotten some funding, what I just was talking about, and I said to myself, I could help him grow that business intentionally. Like we could. He obviously has a great company, but I felt like I could help him scale his great company. So everybody after the talk went and mobbed Clay, and for most of your listeners, your community, I think most of them would know Clay is the CEO of Infusionsoft. For those who didn't know that, he's the CEO, and he just spoke, and everybody's kind of mobbing him afterwards. And I decided to take a different approach rather than just be another name or face in a crowd of people. One of his other senior leaders was there at the event and was standing by himself. And I went over there and talked to him. He was the chief technology officer at the time. So his name is Mark. And so I went and talked to Mark, and Mark and I struck up a conversation. I told him what I did. My background's in organization development work. That was my graduate degrees in organizational behavior, which is really about how organizations tick, the people component to it, the culture. If you want different results, you got to change up all the inputs to get different outcomes. And so I was helping small businesses grow, and I heard Clay speak, and I went and talked to Mark, and Mark said, "Hey, I think that's interesting. Let me set up a meeting with Clay." And so that's how I got a meeting, and I actually was a consultant to Infusionsoft for about 8 or 9 months, and I was increasingly doing more and more. So I helped Infusionsoft get their values in place, did the hiring process, built the onboarding process, the performance management system, leadership model at Infusionsoft, just a lot of things. I helped with the strategic planning process there for many years, helped facilitate and lead that planning and execution process. So I wouldn't claim to be the one-man band, the sole person to make all that happen, but I had an influential role in all of the people, processes, and systems to scale the culture at Infusionsoft. After 8 or 9 months as a consultant, Clayton and I kind of both knew that it was something I was definitely passionate about doing, help small businesses succeed. I could do it outside of Infusionsoft like I was doing previously, or I could join the company and help. And so I decided to join, eventually became kind of the right-hand person to Clay and helped him as he continued to grow as a leader and scale the company. So I was on the ride at Infusionsoft from about 7 million in revenue, 80 people, to over 100 million and over 500 people. And yeah, it was a good time. During that journey is when we started up the Elite business. And we created Elite Forum and started teaching some of Infusionsoft's customers how we did what we did. They said, hey, you guys did that really well. You're getting recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in America. You're getting recognized as one of the best small workplaces in America. It teaches how to do that stuff. And we finally gave in and said, okay, yeah, we'll do that. We created the Elite Forum, which is, you see a reference to that here on the screen. We still do quarterly events. Our next one is December 6th and 7th. But we do those quarterly, and that started up about almost 7 years ago now at Infusionsoft, and we've been doing them ever since. About February of this year, we spun the business out of Infusionsoft, and now I own and run it. But for the first 6 years of its life, it was inside of Infusionsoft, and we've just had the privilege of helping hundreds of seven-figure businesses learn what they need to do to scale. So that's kind of the long introduction, but got my start at Infusionsoft. We built this business inside of Infusionsoft, and earlier this year we spun it out.
That's super interesting. And I appreciate you going through it all, because it didn't seem too long to me. It's a lot of interesting stuff in there. So for anybody who doesn't know, who's watching this, he mentioned it, but I just want to add on top and say, yeah, for the last decade, Infusionsoft was really well known, and especially in the beginning, like huge pioneers, it feels like, of this type of thing. And maybe it was just in my limited knowledge, I'm not sure, but that's what it seemed like. And to everybody I talked to, and I know a lot of people have been through Elite Forums and things like that. And it's not just the Elite Forum, right? You have a bunch of other things that are part of this business. Can you kind of give us the landscape of what you guys offer or what you're involved in, and then we'll get into the membership?
Sure. Thanks for asking. And like I mentioned, right here on our site, we started out with workshops to help seven-figure businesses grow. And the workshop, the singular workshop, was called Elite Forum. It's a 2-day event. We'd have people come in from all over the world. Really, we've had people come from as far away as Australia, Brazil, the UK. They come in, and we give them kind of the playbook for how you set a clear vision as an entrepreneur becoming a CEO, right? There's a transition there. You've done everything you know how to do to get that business to that 7-figure mark. You've cracked into $1 million plus in sales. Somewhere between $1 and $3 million, those businesses usually get stuck. And it's because the business has grown to the capacity or capability of that superhuman entrepreneur who's kind of put it on his or her back to that point and like willed it to that point. Well, there's a new set of things that they have to do to figure out how to scale that business. So Elite Forum was created for that purpose. After that, we had people come back to us and say, well, Elite Forum was amazing. We'd love some ongoing help. Is there more we can do? Can we stay connected? And so I'll just hover over the programs tab here. Elite Forum was the original 2-day event. Elite Momentum was born out of customers saying, can we come back for more? So we created, we asked for a year-long commitment if you're going to enter Momentum, but there are quarterly live events as part of that, monthly webinars, monthly open office hours where people can call in and ask me questions if they're getting stuck. There are little peer groups that we put people in for accountability and support along the way. So that's the ongoing thing. And then for those businesses who scale to the 3 million plus range, if they're kind of in that 3 to 10 million, even beyond that, and want to be involved in our mastermind, we have a smaller intimate group called Elite Mastermind. And Clayt is actually still involved heavily in that. He helps to run the mastermind. He'll talk occasionally in Momentum still. Forum, now that the Elite business is outside of Infusionsoft, he can't come to those like he used to. But he's still heavily involved at Mastermind and super passionate about our live events. So these are the live events: Forum, Momentum, Mastermind. There's an Ascension there if it makes sense for people. But we didn't have anything that was kind of a, how do I get started with you guys? Is there a way to get some access without coming to a live event? And so hence the name Elite Access. We created the membership product called Elite Access, which we'll get into more behind the scenes look today on our call. But that's intended to be all of the materials of Elite Forum until, before people are ready to come to a live event. They can come, they can actually get video of previous Elite Forums. They get examples. They get all the materials that we would share in Elite Forum, but it's in an, anywhere, anytime kind of membership product now that we hope will allow people to get early access to us and start to get benefits before they're ready to come to one of our live events.
No, that's perfect. And just to insert a couple of things, this is kind of starting to get at the heart of it, and why I think this is so cool to be able to look at the businesses. Membership businesses are usually built, kind of from this model of, hey, we're doing something live, let's scale it online. Or a lot of times they go the other way of, hey, we're successful as a membership site, let's try to do some live events and stuff. And so, yeah, help as we dive into some of this stuff, help me understand how you chose to put which information where. Like in Elite Access, for example, are there things that you're withholding, or are you trying to create, like a step to Elite Forum? How did you decide what to put into that course?
Yeah, great question. So are there things that we're withholding? I get, technically there's probably some things that you get at Forum that's not going to show up in Access, but that would be more like over time Forum expands and the things we put in there expands. But the basic offering of Elite Forum from the get-go, and when I say basic, I mean the entire, all of the original Elite Forum principles around culture and strategy that we taught in Elite Forum, we've bundled up in that Access product. So we're genuinely trying to say, let's open this up to more people and call it Elite Access, so that they're getting access to the same things people would get by coming to our live event, only they're not getting the same value because they don't get our expertise on their business. When they're here in person, we're volleying with them, right? We teach a principle and then we workshop. And Elite Access is all the content, but without the workshopping, without the coaching, without the consulting.
Gotcha. Cool. So what else are you going to add to this mix, if anything? So you've got now your membership. Is that your main route to go to the masses, or do you have any other plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. For now, that is our main route. One thing that we experienced, and I kind of knew this would happen, but not to the extent that it has happened. When we spun the business out this year, it was like going from, and I may have shared this analogy with you before, but it was like going from the safe harbor inside of Infusionsoft into the open waters, a little more turbulence out there. And we had to build and are still working on our customer acquisition machine. So we had all this great content. We had a business that was, an elite business in its own right. It was doing $1 million+ in revenue. We spun that out, but all of the ways we were getting revenue customers before kind of went away, because we were getting most of our customers through Infusionsoft's live event, their icon event, and that was great while we were inside of Infusionsoft. Now that's not available to us. So most of our plans right now are in generating content, which end up being pieces of what we share in our programs, but content that we can share with partners via webinars, right? So if I were to get on a webinar with you, Micah, to your audience and say, hey, our audience needs a plan for 2019 like everybody else. What are some valuable tips for preparing your audience to have a breakout year in 2019? Well, I could put together a nice webinar to an audience like that and give some content. So I don't see us incorporating anything more into our membership site in the short term. It's more a way of going to market with content through partners that we've been working on, and we're trying to drive people into the membership product.
Gotcha. It sounded like there was a lot of different avenues for support. You mentioned accountability. It sounded like there were some groups and things. In the Elite Access program, is it just content, or are there other elements in that program as well?
Oh, yeah, great question. So we know, and I'm sure now that you've got so much experience in membership sites, just like software, the value in a membership site only comes if people consume it, right? If people use it. If they're paying for your membership site month after month and they're not using anything, that's problematic. So what we've tried to do with Elite Access is match that up with a couple things. One thing we've done is we've said, hey, it's not just content. There's these open office hours. In fact, would it help if I showed some of that? Let me
Yeah,
see.
if there's,
Let's go
I,
into.
yeah, and I mean, let's, for some background, he's built the site with Membarium. He showed it to me a little bit, and this is him logged in as an admin, checking some stuff out. So, yeah, how do members, for example, get into that?
So members would get in from our site, right? Just our normal website. There's a member login, and they would log in. As Micah referenced, I went into the admin behind the scenes, but this is where they would just go ahead and log in. So it's our site for the masses to learn about our products, our programs. There's some customer stories. We learned some things from the story brand approach, right? So we've recently redone a bunch of this. I'm blogging now, so all the things you're supposed to be doing, right? Content, customer verification, customer testimonial kind of stuff. But then our members can go here and just log in directly onto this site, and when they do, this is what they would see. So if they're Elite Access members, then this is what they're going to have access to. If they're Elite Mastermind members, they're going to have access to everything that follows to the left. I don't know if that's a common practice, but the way we've built it is whatever membership level you're at, you get everything to the left of it. So if you're Momentum, you get these two, Elite Forum down
So
here.
let me ask a couple questions. So if somebody was only an Elite Access member, you're saying they would still see everything to the right, the forum, the Momentum, the Mastermind.
Yes, they'll see it all, and they can click in on program details, right? Because we want them to have a little bit of a taste. Here there's more. And so they can click on program details and see that information, but
Nice.
they won't get access. They'll see that there's other stuff. They just won't get it.
Gotcha. And also, I noticed this is on a subdomain. So this is a separate members only WordPress install, right?
Correct. Yep. Great clarification. And I warned you beforehand. I have team members who help me with all of that stuff. I'm not super knowledgeable of it, but yes, we have a separate install for the members area.
No, and that's great. And I only pointed out because I'm pretty surprised actually how often that question comes up of whether to do it in a subdomain or the main site. Were you part of that decision-making process?
Yes, I was, but again, I wasn't super knowledgeable about it. We basically took a well-placed recommendation from a partner who was helping us do it. So partner said, hey, you're going to want to put this on another site. He gave some reasons why. I don't remember them to this day. You might be able to point them out for your audience right now, but we decided to do the separate.
Yeah. And if you don't mind indulging me for a second.
No, please. I'd like to learn again.
No, you're good. So just looking at this, all the navigation is member related. And if you pop over to the other tab, all the navigation is sales related, right? So
oh, right. Good point. Yes.
You can cram them into one site, and you can say when they log in, suppress this type of navigation, and when they're not logged in, suppress that type of navigation. It's just a little trickier. And then also, and so that's like the obvious one, because when you go to that other tab, if you'll switch back, this is a nice experience for a member. They're not being pitched at, if it is, it's very light and informational. Like you're saying, the menu items are available. They can go see kind of the table of contents. So that's great, and this is what I like to see. If somebody's just getting started, that's the only case where we'll say, hey, to keep it simple, to not manage two WordPress sites, okay, start it in your site. But if it's a real component of your business, a subdomain's great. There's a lot of other technical benefits, but for simplicity's sake, the navigation is a huge one where you don't have to try to cram it together. You don't have to get tricky and suppress everything. And both sites actually run quicker because it's separate. So anyways, I'll get off my...
No, that's good. It's very good information. So you had asked what we've done for Elite Access to help people in that program. So I wanted to come here because we've done a few things, and I don't know how helpful this is for others, but it made sense to us. And coming from Infusionsoft, a software company, I come at this with a user lens, right? A user experience, a usage is king sort of approach. So I know that if my members aren't in here using, then they're not going to stick around. So we put together a little timeline. I'll go ahead and show it. It's nothing fancy, But what we've done is said, hey, rather than just own a membership, rather than be a paying monthly member that just is kind of ambiguous of what to do, we've tried to say, hey, for the first few months, you're probably going to want to work on this. And here's where you would go to get started with that. For the next few months, right? And we don't have fancy pages or anything. This is really simple stuff. But we've tried to guide them through an experience that would be helpful to them and somewhat logical, right? So whatever you can do to kind of guide your people through a process, we've chosen not to make modules that are locked until they get to, till they're completed, and then they can unlock the next one. I know they can do all those things with your platform, but we've chosen to give it to them. Here's Elite Access, right? We want to be true to the name. It's all there. You have access. But let's help you walk through it in a way that's going to be most helpful. On top of that, we supplement with some open office hours where people can call. It's a group call, and we like that, with Zoom meeting, or I'm sure any other meeting tools that are out there, you could do this, but we've just set it up where they don't have to figure out a link or anything. They just go here. They know that from 2 to 3 p.m., the second Tuesday of every month, they can go here, hit click, join the live call, and it takes them right into the call. So we just tried to remove some friction, make it super easy for them to come ask questions. If they're getting stuck on the material that they're trying to implement, they can come and get some support. Additionally, if you scroll down on any of our program pages, this is going to be a little misleading. At the bottom, this one says Elite Forum Alumni Facebook because I'm an admin, and that's our higher level Facebook group. But if I were only logged in as an Elite Access member, it would say, go to our Facebook page and join the Elite Access Facebook page. So we've also created a little community there where Elite Access members can, again, reach out to us with questions, and we'll respond to there, but then also to the community, because the community has some valuable insights. So we're looking to give education, we're looking for some accountability opportunities, and we're looking for as much community building as we can in the way that we've done this.
So I just want to point out, I think the flow of this is really nice, and the simplicity. The Facebook thing at the bottom there is actually really cool, and having it be membership specific for the groups, I think that's a great way to integrate them, to make it feel like, hey, the community's right here. A lot of times the Facebook experience feels a little separate, but also when you were showing that timeline, I love it because it's so simple. You didn't have to, over engineer your content or how it's delivered. You just took the time to make this additional page, which points them in a direction based on where they're at. So right. I love that. And I might be reading a little too much into it, but it's kind of like this whole thing seems kind of like executive summary-ish,
Yes.
You're saving them time. You're keeping it simple. I don't think they want the bells and whistles. They just want to get this stuff done. So it's great. Like, congrats on the design. And I know you're going to credit your team, but still, it looks nice.
Yeah. So I did have a great team together to make this happen. Once you click on the content from the timeline, or you go straight to the content from the menu, it's gonna take you to the same place. So again, very simple on the timeline. It's just a way to help them frame up how you want them consuming, moving through the content. One more thing I'll add that might be useful to some of your listeners. I know many of them would be Infusionsoft users or some other similar type of tool. We chose to complement the membership product with a campaign using Infusionsoft. So we'll say, okay, in your first 2 or 3 months, you should be working on setting the vision. Well, we have an email going to them saying, how's it going with your purpose work? Because for us, setting the vision is purpose, values, and mission. So we'll start with purpose. So number one thing you got to do is get your why nailed down. And here's what it means, and don't forget about this resource. So we're using an email campaign to drive them back to the site and interact with us in ways that say they're progressing through the material. So again, I don't know how unique that is, but that's one way we're trying to say it's more than just collect a subscription and hope they go to the site and use it.
I love it. I would think that most people want to do something like that. In my experience, most don't do it very well, and could probably look at their process again. You know, their, like you're saying, their Infusionsoft campaign that kind of goes in tandem with the membership stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's, what's interesting is a lot of people will try to do more. And I think your site's a great example. Even if somebody is out there, and forgive me if you're actually doing this, but is like running a blog about knitting cat sweaters or something, the same concept of the executive summary still applies. People want to pay you to make their life easier, make it simpler, give them that aha moment. You know, this type of content usually is, you're going to do better with that. And then you do want them to do the hardcore implementation, but energetically, you've got to kind of give them those things. And so as you're watching this, if you think, oh, well, this is just for businesses, or this is just for high level businesses, I would say, no, this same thing could have any content in it, and it would work better than something with too many bells and whistles and it's too dense. So, yeah, I like this stuff so far. So let's back out for a second again. So that's kind of the membership thing. And
you want to go to the admin area?
Yeah, let's go in there. And I was going to say, what, I know you're not the technical side of this, which is great. But maybe if you just click on plugins down there, we can see some of the other plugins that you're using. Sure. I think I noticed. So for the techie people watching in on this, if you don't mind just scrolling through that list, you can see he's using some Divi stuff, it seems like. And there's some Memberium stuff. So nothing really jumps out. You know, they didn't, and I mean this in the best way possible, they didn't try to get too fancy. They kept it simple and kind of light, which is cool. And it, to me, it kind of represents that simpler is better. And I only say this because there's a lot of people who are beginners who try to overcomplicate. So if you want, you know, if your needs mean that you got to build something better, you know, more custom, that's great. But even for a high-end business market, this is a pretty simple site. And like I said, that's a compliment. So so let me ask this. Is there anything that you learned when building the membership site that you would say is kind of a lesson learned?
Sure. But the lessons I learned, though, probably apply more to a similar question on any lessons learned in building a website, right? Because we kind of built them. We built the two sites, the one that was the external facing and the one that was the membership site. And so I think we learned along the way that the most difficult part, in my opinion, is coming up with the content and the organization of it. And I'm with you. I know you're trying to pay us a compliment for keeping it simple, but that was in self-defense. Like we couldn't get more complex. We just needed it to be functional. And I would just say, as a general principle for anything that anybody's trying to do, like start simple, get something that works, get it going, and then, you know, you can add to it. I had people working on adding more content to our membership site all the time, but it doesn't matter. We got enough in place to get it launched. And with it launched, now you can start asking customers for feedback and watching them, right? So if they're not moving through, that tells you something. If they are moving through, what pace are they moving through? Where do they seem to get stuck? How can you better provide the support? So it's an observation and iteration experience more than it is a perfect design, you know, build out a masterpiece and then launch, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I love it. I love every word of it. Let me ask another question, kind of, because I have this same thing going where I have a software and then a membership site. Are there any other, you mentioned that one of the things from kind of coming from software is it's very consumption based. Are there any other things that you feel carry over from your experience with a software company to now your experience as more of an information kind of training, teaching company?
Sure. And it's funny enough, I was on a podcast earlier today and got asked us, we got into this topic kind of unexpectedly, found ourselves in this topic. So I'll leverage what we talked about earlier today. The one of the main things that I didn't realize I was picking up being part of an Infusionsoft software company was that the the user experience methods often involve inviting your customers into the design process itself. And so what we have done with our live programs, whether it's a membership site or a live event, or just how we build any of our products or services, we've invited some of our best customers to come sit side by side with us and design the journey, right? Design the thing and give us the words that we should be using to market it or to explain it. In the case of a membership product, what is the best way to deliver value, and let them be the ones to help you put words to it. So as much as you can, pull in your end user, especially your ideal end users. If you got, and I know we all got a mix of those. So we got some that are like our best customers, and some that we're happy to serve because we still need the funds that are coming in from them, but they're not the ideal target, right? And so you need to get as many of those ideal target customers as you can, and over time you can afford to be more picky, but get them to be the ones to help design everything, including your membership site.
I had never really thought about that of, having your ideal customer sit with you, which is dumb because you're right. It seems like the most obvious thing to carry over from software.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that we kind of subconsciously benefited from, having lived inside of a software company for 10 years.
Yeah, and it's, I'll have to think about that a little more, because I'm just like, I ask for people's feedback and that sort of thing. But what you're talking about is totally different.
It's different. Yeah. Get them involved in the design, not just feedback.
Yeah. Very cool. Anything else?
No, I can only give so much gold at one time, Micah. No, I can't think of anything else. That's the biggest takeaway for me.
Gotcha. Cool. So that, it sounds like kind of a lesson learned along the way. I think you've probably had, I'm just trying to think, there's only a handful of people who've had as much experience as you have diving into I would say the real nitty gritty of people's businesses. Because from what I understand, and I haven't been to one of the Elite Forum things, but I have talked to a lot of people who have, and you guys really get into it. I used to kind of joke with people sometimes with Infusionsoft. It was interesting going out and being an Infusionsoft consultant, where somebody would tell you about their business, but then when you would really dive into it deeper and like get into their app and stuff, you would kind of know the truth. And probably with you guys, where you really get into strategy and numbers and all that kind of stuff, you see a lot of businesses. So there's a very long way, of saying, I think you probably have a lot of insight into Infusionsoft users. What is some general advice? So like, let's take membership out of the picture for a minute, because my users are Infusionsoft users, are probably a lot of the same people. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that you feel like they all need?
So my comments will be especially relevant for companies that are in that they've hit that $1 million mark, or they're fast approaching it. Okay, so it is relevant in earlier stages, but it will be more relevant at that stage. So what I see is a lot of business owners, usually founders who've grown this thing, and they feel so connected to the everyday making it happen that they rarely take enough time to get up out of the weeds, out of the day-to-day, to get clear about where they're going and aligning everybody to a common objective. So that might sound like, leadership 101, or I don't know how cliched it sounds for people, but the idea of breaking out of the business so you can work on the business is by far the biggest challenge I see entrepreneurs struggling with. And again, that doesn't really matter what stage of business, but it's especially challenging for their business to move past where they are once they get into that 1 to 3 million range. They tend to get stuck there because they haven't built in the intentionality, and they haven't built in the discipline to translate that big picture into results. Simplifying it all down into those two things, I would say intentionality and discipline are the two things that most entrepreneurs struggle with to continue to grow their business beyond where it is.
Gotcha. And the elite access level, is that for people at the $1 million mark, or would you say it's for people under the mark?
Yeah, so it's definitely for people who are at the $1 million mark, but we made it accessible and at a price point, and I'm not really pitching it here, but it's 197 a month. So we've tried to make it reasonable so that a business that was in the 300,000 to a million range could benefit from it, even though likely their biggest challenge is still a marketing challenge and still like a consistent fulfillment challenge. Like there's still enough business building stuff that has to happen to get them to that $1 million mark, that the things we're sharing are definitely relevant, definitely helpful to them, but it may not be their biggest hurdle to get to their next point.
Gotcha. And I'll share my personal story a little bit with this kind of stuff. Um, it's so I tried to have more discipline even when we were just small, right? Like 100,000 kind of a thing, and do some strategic planning and was like reading the books and stuff. And so when I was asking you the question, I did want to understand what the content is for, but I do want to encourage people who are under the $1 million mark to consider it, only because that's exactly what I did. I invested a lot of time and energy early in doing some of those sessions. And even though maybe it was premature, like the business didn't need that much strategic focus at the moment, maybe it needed more implementation and firefighting right at that second. But by building that habit, it was kind of nice, because then when we got to the higher level, it was already a habit and we didn't experience that weirdness, so
Yeah, you didn't have to jump through a whole new set of hoops because you'd already been exercising those muscles, which is great. And I have seen, like, honestly, I would love for startups to start with this content, but I know the biggest thing on their mind is I got to get sales, right? I got to get product right. I got to get product market fit right so I can sell. And those should be the biggest things on their mind. And these other things aren't on their mind as much. But you're right. If they can be disciplined enough to start incorporating these things earlier, it will benefit them.
yeah, definitely. And I'll name one more benefit that I experienced quite a bit, which was by doing some of this stuff, by getting clarity a little bit earlier, even though it was in flux. Like, we changed it. So I know some people are kind of like, oh, you set them and you never change them. We knew that we were premature, and so we were kind of like, well, we'll revisit it here and there. And they've been solid now for a while. But what was interesting, and I along my consulting career started encouraging clients to do this a little bit because it was working for us, which was just kind of like, well, yeah, even though the vision might change, it was cool to have even when we were small, because it was easy to communicate to new employees and to potential clients and stuff. We had a lot more clarity than other people our size. So you're right, and you're being very appropriate by saying, they have different challenges than maybe this stuff. But for anybody who's interested in it, yeah, I would encourage you guys to take a bite, or at least check it out, even if you're not quite there yet, because that's what I did, and it was pretty helpful, really helpful.
Yeah, appreciate you saying that, and good for you. Congratulations on being one of the few that made this stuff happen early on, even though it was more work. But now you're benefiting.
Yeah, and I should definitely make sure, in case people don't know me very well, that I had failed several times and had bad businesses before that. So it wasn't my first round, but yeah, it was helpful knowing this stuff, even with a small business. Was my roundabout point, but thanks for being patient with me, Brett.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we've covered a lot of, I think we've covered what we want to. Is there anything else that you're thinking about that you want to share with people?
I like the point that I think you kept emphasizing, which is, as I click back into the membership site, I think the key is valuable content, right? That you're going to deliver the value that you've sold. So valuable content, simple, approachable, consumable stuff is the way to go. And I know at some point I might want to get more sophisticated and say, well, you're actually not going to even see this content until you've mastered section A, and now we're going to go to section B or module or whatever. But for now, we're super pleased with what Memberium has made available for us, which is a nice looking membership site that allows us to deliver something meaningful to our audience. And we're just thrilled to have that. And I think practical, simple wins out as long as you get people to use and get value. That's what you got to get people using and get the value, so they want to stay and tell other people about it.
Absolutely. And so for everybody watching, and this will be under the video too, but it's growwithelite.com. And is there another way that you want people to connect to you, social media or that, or should they go to the website?
They can certainly find us on Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, we're on those places, but going to the website is an awesome way to connect with us. So that just keeps it simple.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, Brett. I really appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad I could join you. Great session.